Welcome to the Weekend Brief with Bharat.Law.
This week at the Supreme Court of India has been pivotal, with significant rulings addressing death penalty procedures, education rights, hate speech, personal liberty, and wildlife conservation. Let's break it all down.
First, a landmark decision on capital punishment in Aman Singh versus the state of Bihar exposed major flaws in India's death penalty framework. Historically, trial courts often lacked access to crucial mitigating evidence, such as psychological evaluations or life history, until the appellate stage. This delay compromised the fairness of sentencing decisions. Recognizing this systemic failure, the Supreme Court stayed the executions in the case and issued comprehensive new guidelines for all future death penalty cases. From now on, trial courts are required to gather detailed reports on mitigating and aggravating circumstances immediately after conviction but before sentencing. This includes psychological assessments, prison behavior reports, and input from experienced legal aid teams with a minimum of 7 years of practice. The judgment emphasizes a rehabilitative approach over pure retribution, aligning Indian jurisprudence with global human rights standards. By institutionalizing this multi-stakeholder process, the court has strengthened safeguards for fair and humane sentencing, marking a monumental shift in how the death penalty is administered. Next, the court reinforced the right to education RTE Act in Lucknow Public School, LDCO versus the state of Uttar Pradesh. The case involved a school refusing admission to a pre-primary student selected under the RTE quota, arguing it had the right to scrutinize the state's selection process. The Supreme Court rejected this outright, making it clear that once the government forwards a list of eligible students, schools have no discretion to delay or deny admission. The court emphasized that such actions undermine the transformative purpose of the RTE Act, which is to promote social integration and equitable access to education. This ruling sends a powerful message to educational institutions that compliance with RTE mandates is not optional, and that any delays harm the larger constitutional goal of common schooling. On the sensitive issue of hate speech, the court addressed petitions in Ashwini Kumar Upadhyay versus Union of India. Petitioners sought judicial intervention to create new criminal offences or compel stricter enforcement against hate speech. However, the court dismissed these requests, citing the doctrine of separation of powers. It clarified that creating or expanding criminal laws is the sole prerogative of the legislature, not the judiciary. That said, the judgment wasn't without progress. The court clarified that magistrates can order the registration of FIRs in hate speech cases without requiring prior government sanction, streamlining access to justice for victims. While the court refrained from overstepping its constitutional boundaries, it acknowledged the seriousness of hate speech and emphasized the need for better enforcement of existing laws under the Indian Penal Code and the Representation of the People Act. The Supreme Court also took a strong stance on personal liberty in Pawan Kheda versus State of Assam. This case revolved around a political figure charged with forgery after allegedly displaying fabricated documents about the Assam Chief Minister's wife during a press conference. The Guwahati High Court had denied him anticipatory bail, citing the need for custodial interrogation. However, the Supreme Court overturned this ruling, granting anticipatory bail and emphasizing that the case relied entirely on documentary evidence, making physical custody unnecessary. The judgment also highlighted concerns about political vendettas. Public statements by influential figures suggesting ulterior motives were a key factor in the court's decision to protect the appellant's personal liberty under Article 21 of the Constitution. This ruling reaffirms that criminal law should not be weaponized to settle political scores and sets a precedent for safeguarding individual freedoms against misuse of state power. Finally, in the realm of environmental law, the court tackled an unusual but pressing issue in New Delhi Nature Society versus Director Horticulture. The case involved the overpopulation of spotted deer at A.N. Jha Deer Park, which had exceeded its ecological carrying capacity of 38 deer. With the park's mini-zoo status revoked for statutory non-compliance, the court ordered the translocation of surplus deer to tiger reserves in Rajasthan. Rejecting emotional appeals to keep the deer in their urban environment, the court prioritized ecological balance and scientific evidence. It ruled that translocating the animals using validated soft-release protocols was more ethical and sustainable than confining them in overcrowded conditions. This decision underscores the importance of scientific assessments and ecological sustainability in wildlife conservation efforts. In summary, this week's rulings have discussed critical aspects of Indian jurisprudence, from mandating procedural reforms in death penalty cases and reinforcing the RTE Act's transformative goals, to addressing hate speech within constitutional limits, safeguarding personal liberty, and prioritizing ecological sustainability. The Supreme Court has demonstrated a commitment to justice, equity, and accountability.
Log on to Bharat.Law for updated research, document intelligence, court notifications, and elevate your legal practice with trusted AI. Until next week, this is Nyay, your trusted AI on Bharat.Law.